Today's segment of SoundBalming is brought to you by Jimmy and Mary's Authentic Body Care. I cannot express to you how much we love their products. Although we use them all year, as the weather gets colder, we need these products even more. The dreaded drop in temperature, the dryness, the itchiness, and the unnecessary flakiness is inevitable. Shea butter from Jimmy and Mary's Authentic Body Care is the only thing that works for my skin and hair needs. Not only do these products cure my dry skin, the whipped butter goes on smoothly and doesn't leave that uncomfortably thick, sticky residue. Bonus? It smells absolutely amazing. There are so many different scents to choose from too. Not only do they carry skincare products, there are products for authentic living, face, shower, hair and beard, spritzers and perfumes, and bath products. Let me tell you, we cannot even keep the stuff in the studio. The entire production team as well as all our children use Jimmy and Mary's product. Jimmy and Mary's take pride in creating quality, handcrafted products from simple ingredients for the entire family. Their products are made for all skin types and are 100% handmade, 100% vegan, and 100% cruelty-free. Skincare is important. Moisture is key, and keeping our skin and hair hydrated is essential. I cannot emphasize how much we trust Jimmy and Mary's for all of our skincare needs. Hurry on up to jimmyandmarys.com and check out their products. Did I mention service is fast and efficient too? Don't forget to mention that you heard about Jimmy and Mary's Authentic Skincare on SoundBalming. Use the discount code SoundBalm20 to get 15% off. That's SoundBalm20 for 15% off at Jimmy and Mary's Authentic Skincare.
Hey everybody, welcome to SoundBalming. I created this show for people who want to experience a radical, life-changing journey through the sounds of my diverse guests. I hope that each sound you hear on this show will strengthen your faith, encourage your dreams, and challenge you to awaken the greatness within you.
Drop the bombs. Drop the bomb. We're gonna drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. We're gonna drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. We come to drop the bomb. Drop the bomb.
This is a journey into sound. A journey which along the way will bring to you new color, new dimension, new values, and a new experience.
Lamar Darnell Shields.
Welcome to my show. I am Dr. Lamar Darnell Shields, the creator of SoundBalming. And my goal with this show is to introduce you to people with ideas that will help you unlock your full potential. Like my last guest, Katara McCarthy, who discussed developing her app Excel on wellness for Black, Indigenous women of color who need to hear and learn from women who have lived a shared experience. If you missed that show, you missed something amazing. If you're a woman of color in particular, she really talked about why she decided to create this app. And I'm so excited because I'm always bringing on somebody exciting. As you can see, our guest, they're patiently waiting. And she too is a powerhouse in her own right. But before we get into the show, before we introduce our amazing guest, you know what time it is. If you are a new bomber, pause for a second. Let me talk to my old heads. My old bombers are already ready. They're sitting up straight. They have their feet planted on the floor. They have their backs up against their chair and their palms are facing up. My new bombers, welcome to SoundBalming. So what we're about to do, we're getting ready for our mindfulness meditation. We always, siempre, as we say in Spanish, always start our show with our mindfulness meditation, and we focus on our 3 breaths. So for my new heads, yes, welcome to the best hour of your life. Yes, I'm bold and bad enough to say that, not because I'm going to do anything amazing. is because I bring on amazing guests. So let's do this. Let's close our eyes. Let's relax our face. Our palms are facing up. Our tongue's at the roof of our mouth. And everything around you is soft. Your face, your eyes, your jaws. And we're going to do our 3 breaths. So we do our first one, which is short. Inhale through our nostril. We hold it for 3 seconds. And then we let it out of our mouths. This time we go a little deeper. We're going to go 5 seconds. So inhale through our nose. Hold it for 5 seconds. Exhale out of our mouths. Now we're going to go much deeper, just like our show goes deeper. We're going to go for 10 seconds. So inhale. Hold it for 10 seconds. Exhale. What is that called? That is called the breath of life. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for allowing us to do those breaths, because believe me, somebody didn't make it out there today. Somebody did not wake up, and our breath says that we are here, and we like to lay the foundation. I had an amazing time with the Katara talking about her Exhale app, and I know you're going to enjoy today's show, because we're always bringing some of the best top speakers, coaches, entertainers, teachers into the SoundBalming session. And so we are ready to go. The spiritual life, like the expressive arts, is largely about the process rather than the product. A dominant metaphor for spirituality is the journey, which evokes a sense of constant movement and progression. You know, we are always unfolding and discovering our journey, our spiritual journey. Sometimes it's a metaphor for spirituality, but it evokes a lot of emotion inside of us. Spirituality is also about a process of integration, of slowly bringing the whole of ourselves or our experiences to our crafting meaning, to craft a meaning. Engaging in the arts as a spiritual practice means honoring the process of meaning and making and cultivating a relationship to this mystery of what this is. Our next guest, Jacqueline Claire, will tell us how the arts will provide a linear explanation of how things function, but to the point, not of the point of the complexities or ambiguities of living, but she is going to make it very simple and make it plain. So you better get ready and pull out your pen and paper or your phone, because during the process of art making, we begin to notice this stirrings within ourselves of resistance, insight, sometimes joy, sometimes sadness, sometimes tragedy, sometimes we hold back, but all of which are great food for insight of our spiritual growth. By engaging neglected dimensions of ourselves, we begin to bring a holistic approach to our spirituality and to reclaim our intelligence. Well, who is Jacqueline? I'm so glad that you asked me, because you're looking at her and wondering why she's sitting there. So let me tell you who she is. She's an artist like me, driven to uplift her community and bring people together through her paintings. She devotes her life and career to exploring the role of art and faith in elevating audiences and encouraging them to access their mystical realities. Jacqueline coined the term spiritual realism to describe her work as a visual artist. Spiritual realism describes her own deep connection to her inner forces that guide her creative processes. The exploration of spiritual realism is Jacqueline's work that focuses on humanity, divine purpose, her ability as individuals to reflect and refine and redefine who we are. I'm so excited that Jacqueline decided to join us in the Bomb Shelter. Jacqueline, welcome to SoundBalming.
Thank you so much for having me.
I am so excited that you are here. I'm, just a couple of days ago, I just interviewed another artist who created this app in particular for women of color, because some of the challenges that she was having with as a woman of color, she felt like she wasn't getting the support So just like you as an artist, she created something, and she said her why was bigger than trying to figure out what it means to create an app, because she was not a techie, but she knew she had a life purpose. So Jacqueline, welcome to the show. Let our listeners know where you are calling from and how are you doing?
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I think that's a great point that you just made. Like art is, aesthetics and that sort of thing, but it's anything that we choose to create that wasn't here before us. And the greatest art is how we live our lives. But I am doing great. I'm so happy to be here. I live in New Braunfels, Texas, which is a little river town right between Austin and San Antonio. It's very beautiful. And I'm doing fantastic. I'm great.
So Jacqueline, please share with our listeners, for those that are seeing and not just listening, describe to us the beautiful artwork that's in the background.
Sure thing. Well, I'll move this piece. So this purple tree in the background, well, it's on a purple background. It's an orange tree. It's called Tree of Wonder. And it is a very realistic looking tree, but of unusual colors. And then it has this very abstract expressionist leaf area. And I like to think that my work represents like an upliftment and a magic and a joy that also acknowledges the darkness. Like that's part of our journey, and we don't deny it, but we find the beauty in it.
And so there's some other artwork behind you as well.
Yeah. So the cacti, I have some giant cacti behind me. Those are my mom's. This was just the biggest wall, and that's why these huge, awesome paintings are here. And this is one that I've collected by an artist named Hooper Dunbar, who's quite old, and I'm really grateful to have a piece of his. Hooper C. Dunbar. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for inviting us into your space. We're just invading all of your space. Since you're an artist, we had to talk about that. Well, I am so glad that you're great, because I know Texas is a hotbed for the pandemic. And so I've brought on several people from Texas. And so I'm so glad that you're okay. Let's get this party started, as we say in the art community. Let's start some painting and start some conversations. So you describe your art genre as spiritual realism, and say that that title has several layers of meaning. So can you please explain what that means? And it's interesting that you and I are having a conversation today about art and realism, because I just watched maybe my second, third, fourth documentary about Michel Basquiat, one of the greatest Haitian, Puerto Rican artists. I did not know he had Puerto Rican roots. I knew he had Haitian roots. And if you don't know anything about Basquiat, we don't have time to talk about him. Go Google him. A great artist in his own right, and an amazing. And I just also watched another film about one of my favorite artists, Frida Kahlo. And so we are here to talk about spiritual realism. What is it, Jacqueline?
Sure thing. Well, the simplest way to put it, like the what it means from an artistic standpoint, is how I blend realistic elements, essentially things you can recognize, a landscape or a person or an animal, and abstract expressionist qualities. And for me, this merging of these two elements, the realistic and the abstract, it's representing in a single image what I think is actually happening all the time for us, that we are in this material world, but then our lives are really about those unseen things, like the reality of our character, like who are we really, and our soul, and the spiritual forces that guide our lives and that are around us all the time, our prayers, you could say. So like the art in a single image is kind of capturing both of these elements, hopefully to help each person who looks at a painting sort of connect with that in their own lives. Like it helps them connect with their own soul, their own sense of spirituality. And then I also believe that all of that spiritual stuff, that invisible part of life, is actually our reality. That the material is actually more of the illusion,
Yes. So like one of the great scholars said, that we are human, we are spiritual beings on a human journey. And I so agree and believe with what that actually means. It was a song I said, I'm only human. I was like, are we really these spiritual beings on a human journey. And so I'm glad that you sort of unpack that. Let's go way, way, way back. Let's go way back, Jacqueline. When did you discover that you were an artist? Now, are you self-taught? Did you go to school? You know, when did you discover that, I got this knack for art? Because as again, I talked about Basquiat and his history, just a little bit of him discovering who he was and just having fun with it, doing the music in the 80s and in New York City. When did you discover that you were an artist?
Well, it's been one of those journeys of returning to where I started, so to speak, because my life took me way in a different direction. In my eyes, you might think there's a connection, but for me, it felt way out and then to return. So I actually come from a really creative family. My mom is an artist, so we have the most obvious connection, but writers, musicians, photographers, designers, restaurateurs, lots of people who did creative things as their profession, and to a high degree of success. So I grew up knowing that creativity was valid. It was a possible path to pursue. And I did love to draw and paint and stuff as a child, but I never really took it seriously. And my passion was acting. And I did that. I started when I was 11 and I ended up moving to LA in my 20s and I lived there. And, you know, it's funny. I very much resisted the idea of even being an artist, which is very strange. Like, people knew that I drew and I was like, no, I'm not an artist. And even in acting, I was like, no, I'm an actress, not an artist. It's so weird. And it wasn't really until I started to embrace that as an actor, the greatest actors are definitely artists, and they definitely make unpredictable choices. And that's why we love watching them work, because they're not, you know, just boring. It wasn't until I actually made that acceptance of that part of me that I was an artist that I started to return to my childhood pastime of drawing. And I found that, in fact, I found so much more ease in that spiritual sense of like, oh, this feels right, you know, in making that kind of art. And then I started painting, and I was just like so enthused to get back in the studio. And I realized this feels so much more right, and I feel almost better able to communicate all of the, you know, stories and upliftment and empowerment that I wanted to share in my acting. Felt like I could do it more directly without somebody else's script, with my own visual art. So I made that transition officially in 2018, and it's been my focus and my full-time groove ever since.
So I know that it has to be challenging to be creative during social unrest, during COVID, during just high levels of death and poverty around us. And I'm reading a lot about creativity and how artists are struggling to be creative. Do you find it difficult to be creative during these trying times? And if so, and or if not, where do you pull your creativity from? Because I hear you talk about spirit. I want to unpack that shortly, and maybe you want to intertwine both of those. But where does your creativity come during these dark times? And what message do you have for artists that are out there who are struggling to be creative?
Sure. Well, this year has definitely been unexpected. And just like everyone else, I had to totally, you know, reorient myself and change my plans. Something that I also do is I bring in my acting background to cultivate live spaces. So like my art shows are integrated with live spiritual storytelling and facilitated conversation. So they're always different because the people who come bring their own perspectives. And I'm really pretty good at like getting those out of people, you know? And so they're these wonderful, almost like campfire feeling, intimate, unique live spaces. And this year I was planning to like do some major touring, and you know, I was going to take the world by storm this year, and instead I realized I was going to have to stay home. So that was a big shift. But on the other hand, when I'm actually painting, when I'm painting or illustrating, I do work mostly in solitude, so that wasn't a big change. I already worked from home, and I've actually found it really motivating and really empowering. Like, once it became clear I'm not going to be on the road, now is a great time to just hunker down and make. And I believe that we have, I think it's important to share your voice and make change in the real world at every opportunity that you can. And I also believe that like your own spiritual state and your own private thoughts and private meditation, private character and private art making, I think that affects the world as well, So like you could say like the better your vibe is, the more you're in that place of joy and trust and giving to life what you have to offer, the more it's helping the world. So man, never been a better time, never been a more clear time to do that. And I've also been working on a children's book, and the movements in the world, I've been so blessed because it like helped guide me like, what would be a good thing for a generation of children to learn, and like, so it's been a great teacher. So my advice would be,
go ahead. No, finish your statement. Uh-huh.
Yeah. My advice would be, whatever you're concerned about, whatever really gets you and you're passionate about, let that be your guide and your teacher to what you need to contribute.
So where do you draw your creativity from? Because I heard you mention the word spirit. Maybe you could unpack what that means to you, spirit and spirituality, and what role does it has when it sort of intertwines with your creative abilities of painting and drawing?
Sure. Well, it's funny, because in a lot of ways, I'm a super practical person and just super earthy in a way, like earthy as opposed to ethereal, so it's funny. It's funny that I'm like such a spokesperson for spirituality because I'm like so grounded in so many ways, like almost to a fault, like, is that practical? But I know that spirit is our reality. And I do practice the Baha'i faith, and the Baha'i faith is a wonderful way to raise a child because it's this very globally minded religion, but also with a great deal of emphasis on your own spiritual life and character and that sort of thing. So, I pray daily and I cultivate a meditative attitude, and I like to be in nature, and I like to just appreciate life, appreciate the sunset, appreciate the light on the trees outside my window, and to think about, how did I behave today? And is there an issue in my life or in the world that maybe there's something I can do something about? So like all of these parts of my daily life, when I'm in the studio creating something, I rarely say, oh, I want to do a painting about that. It's more so I just get started on a painting, like from an aesthetic, almost playful point of view, just play with different colors and stuff and see what emerges. But I think all of that living sort of filters through and comes through the work. And once the painting starts to evolve, sometimes I can even see it. I'm like, oh, this painting clearly was inspired by that trip to New Mexico I took in January, or, but it's not like intentional.
Yeah. Well, speaking of projects that you're working on, I know that you have a show that was inspired. What inspired you to create the Awaken to Your Life as a spiritual journey? What was the inspiration behind that, and explain to our audience members what it actually is, and then how can our listeners experience that?
Yeah. So Awaken to Your Life as a spiritual journey, it is a blend of art show, spiritual storytelling, and dynamic discussion. And it's based on, so there's these 7 paintings of mine. There are these mystical landscapes. And I share the story behind their creation, like my personal story, what was going on in my life. And it was the transition when I was realizing that acting and that whole 19-year path that I had invested my heart and soul and identity in was no longer working for me. And even though I was painting, I hadn't quite pieced it together that this was my new path. And I had this real sense of a loss of identity and like, who am I? Why am I here? You know, where should I live? I mean, everything was geared towards one path. And so it was this real time of transition and like, oh, I'm falling apart kind of feeling, which I think like everyone in the world can relate to right now. And I also tie in this mystical, very obscure Baha'i book called The Seven Valleys. And it's a real universal and poetic explanation of the different stages that our souls go through along the path towards growth. So I tie in all of these things and then really open it up in a very facilitated way for people to share their own insights. And we use the artwork as a way to go deeper into these ideas, to spark personal associations, almost like a dream, you know, like where it's like, oh, now this thing makes sense in my life because I just correlated it in some way I'd never thought of before. And, you know, the inspiration for this whole event was, of course, the life experience that I was telling you about. But really, it was the existence of the paintings. These were the first paintings I did when I was sort of trying to figure out what I was doing with my life in 2017. And they were really strong. That, like, it was very obvious to me that, like, maybe painting is what I should do. These are really strong paintings. And I had 7 of them. And I was like, oh, it's like the 7 valleys.
Interesting.
So it was kind of backwards, like the paintings themselves inspired the show. And then I had one event and it was just, you know, I actually, like, after the event, it was so funny. I actually like had a little bit of a freak out because just like a private little freak out, but it was because it was so awesome. Like it was such a feeling of flow and inspiration that it was like, that experience can't die on the vine. Like, I have to do this again. Like, that can't be the only time. Yeah.
Well, I heard you say that art can help us connect with meaning, joy in each other. How is that? And explain to us what that actually means.
Yeah. Well, there's so many ways that art can do that. And I think creating art absolutely does that. And I have thoughts on that. But I also think just being an appreciator, just like, you know, I'm not a musician, but I love to listen to music, like how appreciating somebody else's art who has dedicated their life to it can really spark something in you. And, you know, painting is one of those art forms that doesn't use words usually. It's a way to express those things that you can't necessarily say in words. And I also find, like, for me, some music can kind of trigger ego in me, like it makes me think about romance or being super attractive or heartbreak or whatever. And art often doesn't have that level to it. So it kind of goes more to your heart in my experience.
So it's funny you would say that. I want to stop right there for a second. Yeah. It's interesting that you would say that because Kanye West, you know, he has all these other challenges. But I remember early Kanye West, when he was being interviewed by a guy named Sway. This was years ago on MTV. And Sway says to him, I heard that you're an artist. And Kanye West said, yeah. And when I said an artist, I heard you're a painter. And he said, yes. And he says, why don't you paint? And he says, because painting wasn't loud enough. And I thought that that was so poetic, because understanding who Kanye West is as an artist now, as a hip hop artist and as a producer, and as this quote unquote fashion icon, would you agree with a statement like that? Because I'm listening to how you're describing your art and how it made you feel when he said that art wasn't, or painting wasn't loud enough for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Painting is like beckons you to come into its world. Music can really come at you. So in that sense, I would agree with him. And it's not a one's better or worse or anything, but painting is a beckoning, and it's easy to ignore a painting. You can't ignore a Kanye West song, you know?
First of all, you can't ignore Kanye West if he's not singing or doing anything, right?
Yeah. He will not let you ignore him. Yeah, so painting is an invitation, and you get to choose whether or not to take up that invitation. But another thing that's really unique about painting, if you think about, a manuscript, somebody's writing a book and they have like all these different drafts that they did. And then they have a manuscript that has all these red notes in it. And then they re-edit it and then they get it packaged and they put a leather binding and it's like the finished thing. And then they mass produce that. A painting is all of those layers in the finished piece. It's all those drafts of work. It's all the revisions, all in one place. And it's this sense of like stillness and motion. Like it captures like the movement and the stillness of a single moment in time. So I feel that it's like a great focal point for meditation, whether it's formal or informal. And that, again, it's kind of like a dream. Rather than being told what to think or what to feel, paintings can really mean something very unique to every individual who looks at it.
So do you believe that everyone is an artist? I believe Picasso, correct me if I'm wrong, Picasso said everyone is an artist. I believe that was his quote. If it wasn't, maybe it was Diego Rivera, maybe it was, somebody else. But do you believe that everyone is an artist?
Yeah, I don't believe that everyone's creative output is of the same caliber. But I believe that to create is part of what it means to be human. And I think the most important art is how we live our lives and how we treat other people. And I definitely think everyone is an artist in that sense.
So what advice do you have for someone wanting to express their creativity, but not knowing where to start? Like I watched Basquiat yesterday and Andy Warhol's and all these other famous artists. And I sat down and thought about, maybe I should go and get some canvas and maybe I should start painting, because it's interesting. During COVID, my 13-year-old son picked up a pen and a marker, and I was watching him draw. He's been watching The Boondocks, which I think is a great piece of cultural art. If you're not familiar with it, it's a great a cultural expression with, is very graphic with some of the language. But my son, who's typically, baseball, basketball, he loves to read. His sister is an actress, and my daughter, and my other one plays piano, but she paints and plays guitar. And during this COVID time, I'm watching him do these sketches of Huey, one of the characters in the show. And we've never discussed it. We've never taken to an art class. And I'm like, boom, it's there. So how do you advise people who want to get started creating something, whatever that creation is? Because I always believe this. I really, really believe this. I think, Jacqueline, God or the creator, whatever we call it, is the best artist. Like when you walk outside and you see flowers and you see colors and you see rainbows, and I'm like, whoever is controlling that is amazing. So what do you have to say to people who want to get started in whatever that is to be creative?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really important to do that because, we're made in that God thing's image, right? So if God is a creator, we have this creator spark in us. And I think we're honoring God and ourselves by exercising that. So my first tip would be whatever you're drawn towards. If there's a certain kind of art you've been a little curious about or you like, I would take that as a sign to go for it. And especially if you have a sneaking feeling you have some talent there. And let's say like you mentioned a couple of modern artists, I would find, you could just get started. You could just play and get started. And I think that's a great way to go. I think early on, though, it's good to have some guidance and some help. So, you could look online and find someone. I actually have a course, and it's abstract spiritual growth through abstract expressionism. And, I told you my mom is an artist and my work is very much inspired by hers. So I'm sharing in this course our secret family art recipes because she always taught me to start with these abstract expressionist techniques which are very simple and really don't require any skill or talent. It's
So
just
give us an example. Give us an example of what that would be.
It's knowing like some basic rules. Like she recommends start with no more than 3 colors plus black and white. And those will be your colors for this piece. And you don't need to overthink it, just whatever your move for that day. And this will help your painting from just looking garish and like, you know, clownish or something like, you know. So you limit your palette, that's what it's called. And then maybe you tape off the edges of the canvas. So when you're completely done, you'll have this nice white border around it. So it gives it like almost like it's framed. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, you start, and there's different techniques that I do with masking tape, taping off parts of the canvas. And I just did a lesson in my class for doing like a Jackson Pollock style painting, using house paint and, you know, like throwing the paint and making like this really cool piece in like 10 minutes, no matter what your skill level. Adolescent boys seem to really like that one, getting to throw some house paint.
Yeah, I would probably fall within that adolescent boy category.
There you go. So, you know, it's like, you know, for me, it's like get started and then work with what emerges, and take my class, which is on Patreon, my Patreon art classroom.
Yes, we want to talk about, since you've already jumped ahead, let's talk about your classes. How can our listeners sign up for your classes, and what should they expect from being a part of Jacqueline's class, you know, and at what level should a person come in? Do you have a variety of levels for entry into your art class?
So this whole thing was born in April of like the lockdown, and it was like, what can I do for people? You know, at the time, a lot of people were staying home and just like, oh, what do I do? And people suddenly had time to make art. And so I started this art class in my Patreon. So most people are familiar with Patreon. And it's essentially like a donation-based subscription art class. And you can start as little as $3 a month. And all the levels have access to all of the lessons. So I don't discriminate. It's whatever you can afford, whatever it's worth to you. And I post the lessons like one step at a time. So it's really designed so you can go at your own pace. And I tell you, you know, your supply list, and there's really no skill needed. If you've never painted before, it's very easy. And if you have painted before, you probably haven't done these techniques because they're very specific to my family and stuff. So you can get something out of it. So it's just on patreon.com/Jacqueline Claire Art, and just sign up and join the art classroom.
So Jacqueline, what do you get from painting? Like, walk us through that feeling when you start and then when you finish a piece. And I guess the big question, is the piece ever really finished?
So I work in a lot of layers. And so I don't set out to paint a specific thing usually, unless it's a commission. And I just like let the piece guide me and see what emerges. And I mean, a single piece might not be finished for a couple of years, or it might be finished in one sitting. It just, I think of them kind of like children in this weird way. Like they have their own character, and it's my job to help them come out as good as possible and to sort of help them discover what they are. You know, tell me what you are and let me help you grow into that. I love painting. It's my favorite place to be in the studio working. It can also be very frustrating because I told you I'm pretty earthy and practical, and sometimes it's incredibly impractical. Sometimes I have to go, you know, all the way to the North Pole to then come back down to Chile. Well, you know, like it's like, why did I have to do that? But there's always a lesson in it. And that's what I love. It always is like, see, I'm here to be your teacher. Mm-hmm. It teaches me that life isn't always linear. And sometimes we do have to go to the North Pole to then realize, you know, we really liked it better in Chile, or, you know, sort of like, you know, the alchemist story where we realize our treasure was where we started. So it reminds me to be patient and to let go of my own expectations and sort of humble myself before the unfoldment of life and just be its servant and show up and do the work and trust that even if it takes 3 years, we're going to get there, you know?
Yeah, we are going to get there. So how did you come up with your unique integrated model of art exhibit? Like, how did you come up with that model?
Yeah. Well, I just had, I'll tell you the true story.
So you've been lying to me this entire, what is going on in the art world? No, go ahead.
No lies. I've just been given the quick version.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was going through this transition in life and trying to figure out what I was doing, and there was a romance situation involved, as there always is.
Romance.
Yeah, so it was like me trying to decide whether I was going to stay in LA and this and whatever, and everything fell apart. But I had these 7 amazing paintings that I had done while visiting my mom in Texas in the summer of 2017, and it took me a couple of months to realize, painting is what I should do. I have these 7 paintings. They're like looking at me every day as proof. And I decided that I'm going to transition. I'm going to move out of LA. I'm going to totally switch gears. And I came back to Texas and started, promoting my work and creating more work and selling and doing events and stuff. And my birthday, of all things, was coming up. And it was a year since that challenging summer. And I thought it would be really nice to go back to the place where I made these paintings, where I had such a fraught summer. Like, I lost so much weight, it's one of those summers.
This must have been a serious breakup. Now we're about to shift gears and go to a different topic. No, go ahead.
Or I'm just high drama. I don't know. But I wanted to like go back to where the art was made, and I wanted to create new memories. Like, I wanted to stand in that place. I wanted to like acknowledge what had happened and what had been hard.
Why was that important to you as an individual and as an artist? Why was that important for you to go back to that place where everything started?
Well, I think by that time I had seen how much good had come out of it. Like, it totally helped reorient me and get me on a new path that I loved. And so it was just sort of like a personal ritual. I just wanted to be there with people that I loved, acknowledge what had happened, and then acknowledge like the good that came out of it and share it with people, because we all go through those times in our lives. And again, collectively, we're totally going through it right now. And we just sometimes need a reminder that, like, yes, I've been there, and you know what? Things change, and they usually change for the better. So don't worry. So that was the impetus for the first time I had this show that developed into Awaken to Your Life as a spiritual journey. So it was after that event where I was like, that was way more than just my personal little ritual. That was like a really unique experience. And I think everyone there got something out of it. So that was the impetus of it. And so long as we remain doing remote things, I do plan to have an online version in the spring of next year. So just keep an eye out for that, what that's going to look like, because it's such an intimate thing. That's going to be the trick of designing it to have that same vibe.
Well, I love it. Well, you have so much to do during these COVID times, listeners. And if you want to try something different and new, I think hanging out with Jacqueline and joining her classes would be a great example, because she combines art, spiritualism, realism, and also the creativity. And then when all this thing is over, you've created some beautiful art pieces that you can keep, or you can sort of share with the world. How can our listeners get in contact with you and find out more information, not just only about your classes, but if they want to connect with you? How can they do that?
Absolutely. Yes. So I am Jacqueline Claire. My website is Jacqueline Claire Art, and everything's spelled the traditional Americanized way with E's at the end. Jacqueline Claire Art. And, I'm on Facebook. They have put me in jail a couple of times lately. They keeps locking me out of my account. It's not anything I'm posting. I just think it's just, I don't know what's going on.
If that breakup in California is coming back to you, we got to double check.
I just been posting Too much love and light. And basically,
Oh,
like, you can't handle it.
I love that. That's a great way of saying. So you need to shut it down. So the website is a great way. The classes, Patreon. It's great. It has been a pleasure talking to you. I mean, after talking to Qatar earlier, and you sort of, talking to her, and then you're backing it up with this information. This is great. So I'm encouraging all my listeners to get out there, check out her site, follow her on all of social media, and you will definitely have some great pieces of artwork that you can, like I said, share with the world. Or this is a great time during COVID to pick up a new hobby anyway. So Jacqueline, thank you for joining me. But you can't leave just yet. This is my favorite part of the show. It's called the Super Bomb Questions, and it's sponsored by my friends at Mountain Made. And I get an opportunity to ask you some questions that my listeners want to know from all of my guests that come on. But the difference about the first part is that when I throw these questions out, you have to answer as quickly as possible. But I think that you're ready. You ready?
Okay.
All right, so here we go. What is your favorite word?
Love.
What is your spirit animal?
A peacock, a white peacock.
A white peacock. What is your superpower?
Ooh, making people feel happy.
What do you wish you had more time to do?
Pray.
What brings you to tears of sorrow?
Abuse of children.
What brings you to tears of joy?
The sound of children's laughter.
What is the best gift that you've given to yourself?
Time to finish my children's book.
What guides your heart?
God.
What values do you live by every day?
To tell the truth and to do my best.
If you could tell one person you appreciate them, who would it be and why?
That I don't already tell?
Yes.
I can't say.
Okay, you can't say. Final question. If you were in the Mrs. America talent competition, Jacqueline, what would your talent be?
A pogo stick.
Pogo stick. Well, I wish I could see you right now jumping on the pogo stick. I thought you were going to say art, but evidently you got some skills that I don't know about. Jacqueline Claire, thank you for joining me in the Bombshell. This has been a pleasure hanging out with you, and thank you for making our world beautiful with that paintbrush or with that pencil or with that crayon or with that mascara pencil or whatever you're using to create that artwork. And thank you for shutting Facebook down because you're sharing nothing but love and joy. So I appreciate you. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much. I have one thing I would love to show you.
Show it. This is a great time to show us something beautiful. What do you got to show us?
Okay, sorry, I have this window light. So this is the first print of my book. So there's still some change.
We forgot to talk about the book. Yes, share the book with us. Go ahead.
So there's more to come, but this is just the first print of it. Noble Beings, a spiritual handbook for children of all ages, which is all of us, right? We're all children on the inside. So it's just short quotes. Here's one on truthfulness. Oh, sorry, the light.
I love it. I can see it. Yeah.
And I have one.
Give us a quick reading. Go ahead. Give us a quick reading.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this one, I wonder if he looks anything like you did when you were little.
Oh, that's me. Oh, look with the curly afro. Oh, I like that.
So sweet.
Chest out.
And his says, "Let deeds, not words, be your adorning." This is a quote from the Baha'i writings. So instead of just talking the talk, see, he is an action hero. You get it? He takes action. So, yeah. So it's not a narrative. It's just little bits of inspiration about how to live and that sort of thing.
I love it. So when is the book coming out? When should we expect to get copies of it?
Yeah. So if people can go to Jacqueline Claire Art and sign up for my email list or on Facebook, Instagram, I will be pre-selling it early November.
We want you to go out and purchase this book for all the holidays that you all celebrate, birthdays, the holidays, whatever you want to celebrate, and share the book. Now, Jacqueline, is all the characters you drew yourself?
Yes. Yes.
Hey, oh, wow. First of all, the book is beautiful. The colors are amazing. And I am in the book, as you saw me with my super cape staying out there. So Jacqueline, thank you for joining me. Thank you for closing out with that great book and sharing with all of my listeners out there. So thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much. It was fun.
And I also want to thank my amazing engineer, Alexander Blanc, my super duper producer, Nicole Klempaka, Supremacy for our theme music, and all of you for listening. If you have not done so, go and subscribe. We're on every platform. Stop being stingy and share me with all of your friends. If you want to know more about me, go to drdrlds.com. Leave a comment, share with the entire world. And as always, believe that something wonderful is about to happen, but some people miss the message because they're too busy looking for the message. Go out, and do something for someone other than yourself today. You've been listening to SoundBalming. Goodbye, Jacqueline. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Peace.
The Super Balm questions are brought to you by Mountain Made CBD. Mountain Made is changing the CBD game by offering a line of high-dose CBD tablets at an affordable price. Their products are THC-free and third-party tested for accuracy, cleanliness, and potency. Their products, which ship nationwide, include Build for CBD saturation, Boost for precision titration, and Recover for rest and rehab. With 9 years experience in hemp and fitness, Mountain Made's founders are focused on creating a quality product to help those who live an activated lifestyle. Check out mountainmade.life. Again, that's mountainmade.life to find out more about how their products can help you crush life. Remember, their products ship nationwide. Go check out their website today and follow them on social media at Mountain Made. That's the @ MNTMADE. Our staff at SoundBalming uses Build before a morning workout, which helps to push our bodies to a whole new level on a daily basis. Try Build, try Boost, try Recover. Our staff is using these products to enhance our active lifestyle naturally, and we are crushing life with Mountain Made CBD, and you can too. Start today by going to mountainmade.life and ordering Build, Boost, Recover, or the multitude of other products that they have which will enhance your lifestyle. I promise you, you won't regret it.